In the autumn of 9 AD, somewhere deep in the forests of Germania, over 20,000 Roman soldiers marched to their doom. Within 3 days, 3 entire legions would be wiped from existence in what would become Rome's most catastrophic military defeat. The disaster was so complete that the Emperor Augustus would spend his final years wandering his palace at night, banging his head against the walls and crying out, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions!" But how did the most powerful military machine the ancient world had ever seen walk straight into annihilation? This is the story of the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, a disaster so profound that it changed the course of Western civilization. To understand how Rome lost 3 legions in a single catastrophic encounter, we need to journey back to the height of Roman power, when emperors dreamed of conquering all of Germania, and one man's betrayal would shatter those dreams forever. I'm going to take you through the personalities, the politics, and the terrible decisions that led to this disaster. We'll walk with the legions into the forest, experience the horror of the ambush, and witness the aftermath that haunted Rome for generations. This isn't just ancient history. This is a story about overconfidence, cultural misunderstanding, and how empires can collapse in the span of 3 bloody days. By the end, you'll understand why this battle matters, why no Roman legion ever bore the numbers 17, 18, or 19 again, and why the borders of Rome stopped at the Rhine River for the next 4 centuries. Let's set the stage. It's the year 9 AD, and Rome is at the absolute height of its power. Augustus, the first emperor, has transformed the Roman Republic into an empire that stretches from Spain to Syria, from Egypt to the English Channel. But there's one glaring problem on Rome's northern frontier: Germania. Germania wasn't a unified nation. It was a patchwork of fierce tribal peoples living in dense forests and marshlands beyond the Rhine River. The Romans called them barbarians, but these Germanic tribes were formidable warriors with their own sophisticated cultures. For decades, Rome had been trying to push its frontier eastward from the Rhine to the Elbe River, attempting to create a shorter, more defensible border. This expansion had seen mixed success. Roman generals had won victories, established forts, and even begun the process of Romanization, introducing roads, trade, and Roman law to some Germanic communities. By 9 AD, Rome believed the region was pacified, nearly ready to become a Roman province. This confidence would prove fatal. Enter our 2 main characters, and what a contrast they were. Publius Quintilius Varus was the Roman governor of Germania. He was around 55 years old, a member of the Roman aristocracy who had married into Rome's own family. Varus had previously governed Syria and Africa, but those were civilized provinces with cities, taxes, and Roman infrastructure. Varus made a critical error. He assumed Germania was just like those places. He began imposing Roman law, Roman taxes, and Roman justice on people who had never asked for any of it. Contemporary historians tell us he was arrogant and slow to act, treating his posting as a comfortable administrative assignment rather than a military command in hostile territory. Then there's Arminius. Born around 18 BC to the Cherusci tribe, Arminius had been given to Rome as a hostage when he was young, a common practice to ensure tribal loyalty. But Rome did something interesting with him. They educated him, trained him in Roman military tactics, made him a Roman citizen, and even gave him the rank of equestrian, a minor noble rank. Arminius served as an auxiliary commander in the Roman army, fighting alongside the legions and learning everything about how Rome made war. But Arminius never forgot who he was. Behind his Roman citizenship and his perfect Latin, he remained a Germanic prince with a burning desire to free his people from Roman domination. And in the summer of 9 AD, he saw his opportunity. Arminius was brilliant. He had spent years cultivating Varus's trust, advising him, dining with him, becoming part of his inner circle. Varus trusted him completely. Why wouldn't he? Arminius was Roman-educated, spoke perfect Latin, and seemed the perfect example of a civilized barbarian. In the late summer of 9 AD, Arminius came to Varus with urgent news. A distant tribe was in rebellion, he said. It wasn't serious, but it required the governor's attention. Varus would need to march his legions there to restore order. Arminius knew the perfect route, a shortcut through the Teutoburg Forest that would save time. Varus believed him without question. He assembled 3 legions, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, along with 6 cohorts of auxiliary troops and 3 cavalry divisions. In total, somewhere between 20 and 25,000 men, plus thousands of camp followers, wives, children, merchants, and slaves who traveled with Roman armies. This wasn't a battle force moving swiftly. This was an entire community on the march. What Varus didn't know was that there was no rebellion. Arminius had sent word to tribes across Germania, calling them to unite for one massive ambush. Thousands of Germanic warriors were already moving into position in the forest, waiting for the Romans to enter the killing ground. Some of Varus's officers were suspicious. A local chieftain named Segestes, who actually was loyal to Rome, came to Varus and warned him that Arminius was planning betrayal. He begged Varus to arrest Arminius immediately. But Varus dismissed the warning. His trusted advisor? His civilized friend Arminius? A traitor? Impossible. It was the last mistake Varus would ever make. Imagine the scene. It's September 9 AD, and the weather is turning. Cold rain begins to fall as 3 Roman legions enter the Teutoburg Forest. This wasn't an open plain where Roman tactics dominated. This was dense, ancient woodland with narrow paths winding between massive trees. The columns stretched for miles, moving slowly through increasingly difficult terrain. Roman legions were designed for open battle, where they could form their devastating formations and bring their superior discipline and equipment to bear. But in the forest, they were strung out in a thin line, unable to form up properly, separated by terrain and weather. The rain turned the paths to mud, wagons became stuck, the columns slowed to a crawl. Then, on the first day, it began. Germanic warriors emerged from the trees like ghosts. They struck at the rear of the column, killing stragglers, then disappeared back into the forest before the Romans could respond. It wasn't a battle, it was harassment, constant pinprick attacks that wore down the Romans' nerves and slowed them further. Varus realized something was terribly wrong, but he still believed he could reach open ground, form his legions properly, and defeat whatever force was attacking him. He ordered the army to keep moving, to push forward. That night, they made a fortified camp, as Roman armies always did, but the situation was desperate. The rain continued. Morale was plummeting. On the second day, the attacks intensified. Arminius had thrown off all pretense now. He was openly leading the Germanic forces, coordinating attacks all along the Roman column. The Germans knew the terrain perfectly. They knew where the paths narrowed, where the ground became marshland, where the Romans would be most vulnerable. At each point, they struck hard, then faded away. The Roman formation began to collapse. Units became separated. Officers lost contact with their men. The long baggage train, with all its civilians and supplies, became a nightmare to protect. Romans who fell behind were killed. Those who tried to flee into the forest were hunted down.
By the third day, Varus knew his army was dying. He made desperate attempts to break through to open ground, but Arminius had chosen his killing ground perfectly. There was no escape route. The Germanic warriors numbered perhaps 18,000 to 20,000, drawn from multiple tribes who had answered Arminius's call. They surrounded the shattered Roman column completely now. The final Roman position was on a hillside, where they tried one last time to build fortifications, but it was hopeless. They were exhausted, starving, injured, and demoralized. The end came quickly. Germanic warriors stormed the Roman positions from all sides. The legions, those proud formations that had conquered the known world, broke completely. It became a massacre. Soldiers threw down their weapons and begged for mercy. They received none. Varus, seeing that all was lost, did what Roman commanders were expected to do. He fell on his sword. Several of his senior officers did the same, choosing a Roman death over capture. But most of the army died fighting or trying to flee through the forest. The Germanic tribes took few prisoners, and those they did take faced horrific fates. Some were sacrificed to Germanic gods in sacred groves, others were enslaved. Archaeological evidence from the site shows the systematic execution of prisoners. The victorious Germans didn't just defeat the Romans, they wanted to erase them, to send a message that would echo across the empire. News of the disaster reached Augustus in Rome weeks later. The emperor, who had spent decades building an empire, was shattered. Ancient historians record that he went into mourning, refusing to cut his hair or beard for months. He would wander the palace at night, repeatedly crying out, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions!" Rome's response was swift but defensive. The Emperor Tiberius, and later Germanicus, would lead punitive expeditions into Germania, recovering some of the legionary standards and burying some of the dead. But Rome never again seriously attempted to conquer Germania beyond the Rhine. The dream of a Germanic province died in the Teutoburg Forest. The three legion numbers, 17, 18, and 19, were never used again in the Roman army, a permanent memorial to the disaster. The Rhine River became Rome's permanent northern border in that region, a boundary that would last for 4 centuries and ultimately shape the division between Romance and Germanic language areas in modern Europe. Arminius became a hero to his people, celebrated as a liberator. But his victory didn't unite Germania. The tribes soon returned to fighting each other, and Arminius himself was assassinated by his own people in 21 AD, just 12 years after his great victory. Still, he had accomplished something remarkable. He had stopped Rome. The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest reminds us that even the mightiest empires have limits, that overconfidence can be fatal, and that understanding the people you're trying to conquer might be more important than military superiority. 3 legions, 20,000 men, wiped out in 3 days, because one commander couldn't imagine that his trusted advisor might be his greatest enemy, because Rome assumed that military might alone could pacify any people, because cultural arrogance blinded them to warning signs that should have been obvious. The Teutoburg Forest wasn't just a battle. It was the moment Rome's expansion stopped, the moment the empire learned it had boundaries it couldn't cross, and in a very real sense, it shaped the modern world. The division between Germanic and Romance Europe, the fact that Germany exists as a distinct cultural entity rather than being part of a Latin civilization, traces back to those 3 days in 9 AD. If you found this story compelling, I encourage you to dive deeper. Read Tacitus's accounts of the Germanic Wars. Visit the Kalkaris archaeological site in modern Germany, where researchers continued to uncover artifacts from the battle. Explore how this defeat shaped Roman policy for the next 400 years. History isn't just about dates and battles, it's about decisions, personalities, and moments that echo through centuries. The Teutoburg Forest was one of those moments. 3 legions marched into a forest, none came out, and the world changed forever. Subscribe to learn more stories about the moments that shaped our world, where empires rose and fell based on single decisions, and where the past still speaks to us across the centuries. Because these stories matter. They show us what humanity is capable of, the brilliant and the catastrophic, and they remind us that the past is never really past. It's always with us, shaping who we are today.